My name is Tom Buchanan. I once was a successful football player with an attractive woman as my wife, a charming 3-year-old daughter, and large amounts of money that allowed me and my family to live in exclusive neighborhoods and be happy. But as time went by, I began to become unsatisfied with the aspects of my life and began to look for a mistress that could fulfill my craving for excitement. I wasn't sorry for being unfaithful to my wife, Daisy, because I believe that men should be allowed to experience pleasure once in a while, and I must confess I couldn't keep apart from my mistress anymore. Never mind whatever the other wealthy people might think of me. Because this activity, having a mistress, is becoming very common in the 1920s. Some of those rich men may have a mistress too. Of course, it isn't pleasant either for your acquaintances to know your little secret, because they continue harassing you about it. Myrtle, my mistress, was special. She wasn't very pretty, but she was extremely sensual, and her vitality provided me the boost I needed to keep on struggling through life. I couldn't understand why a girl like Myrtle was married to a guy like Wilson, a mechanic. She wanted to experience the luxuries money can afford, and I could provide her that pleasure, while Wilson couldn't. Anyway, when I wanted to see Myrtle, I stopped by Wilson's garage in the Valley of Ashes, pretending to be interested in selling a car, which I obviously didn't have. There I told Myrtle to go to an apartment we had in the city. Pretty smooth, wasn't it? I could consider Wilson as a friend, but I didn't bother worrying about him finding out of my affair. He was naive, stupid. One summer day, Daisy's cousin Nick arrived to my house on East Egg. I had met Nick years before at New Haven College, where we studied together. Since then, I appreciated his friendship and respected his opinion. Days later, I invited him to meet Myrtle, just trying to impress him for having a mistress. And everything was going fine, until Myrtle began repeating Daisy's name over and over and over. I had to slap her on the face. She needed to learn to respect me. But I was a little embarrassed that Nick had to see me act this way. Anyway, it was Nick who introduced me to the man who made himself be called J. Gatsby. I was having lunch at a place on 42nd Street when Nick arrived with this man. I had no reason to believe that this man was trying to steal my wife. He surely was acting nervously before me, and the hurriedness with which he left was suspicious, but I didn't give much thought to such details at the time. Next time I ran into Gatsby, I couldn't remember who he was. I arrived at his house by accident, accompanied by a couple friends of mine that had convinced me in going to the other side of the Sound, to this place where we were supposed to have some great fun. It turned out to be Gatsby's mansion. When we arrived, Gatsby seemed surprised and uneasy, but he invited us to drink with him anyways. He recovered his confidence pretty quickly, though. he began chatting with me. He mentioned that we had met before, but I didn't really care. Until he suddenly stated that he knew my wife. The fact definitely shocked and disturbed me. Who was that man? How did he know Daisy? These questions were buzzing in my head when the woman in my group announced that we were coming to Gatsby's party that night, and I speculated that it would be a great opportunity to learn more about that man, so I agreed. That night I arrived with Daisy and Jordan, and I immediately noticed the disgusting display of wealth that this man carried out in his parties. I figured out he was a bootlegger, that this rich and friendly man he seemed to be was only a facade for a scumbag. I also noticed a great deal of time that he and Daisy were spending together, and that worried me. I began to investigate this man more deeply. I can't remember how many days had passed when Gatsby and Nick arrived at East Egg because Daisy had asked them to come over. I welcomed Gatsby with a great demonstration of tolerance. There was an awkward atmosphere, and after lunch Daisy suggested going to town. On our way to the city, we stopped by Wilson's garage. Who would have imagined that would be the last time I saw Myrtle? While I was fueling up, I saw her behind the curtain. While I was being told by Wilson that they were planning on moving west, I was surprised, disappointed. We arrived at the Plaza Hotel after interminable minutes of jealousness because Daisy had decided to ride alone with Gatsby. We rented a room, and almost immediately I began arguing with Gatsby. I aspired to uncover his numerous lies, to show Daisy the despicable kind of man he really was. But he delivered a blow that I couldn't have expected, and it shattered my heart. He argued that Daisy didn't love me, that she had never loved me, and that she planned to leave me. Daisy said that she did. She once had loved me, but it mattered no more. That night, when I discovered Gatsby had run over Myrtle and left without stopping, my entire world had collapsed.